And this is ISIS Carrie for the big homie
Sounds really alarming, actually.
Julian. What's alarming?
Well, it's ISIS, and then the song is called Carrie, and like everybody's like so scared about ISIS, and then or at least they used to be, and then when you think about Carrie, it means like carry weapons. What's happening here?
Oh, the terrorist organization.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, who's scared of? What are you talking about? Nah, man, Baghdadi's dead. Rest in peace, Baghdadi. Okay. Fuck Baghdad. I don't care about him. He gets what he gets, bro. You're in Jahannam right now, you evil bastard. Anyway, separate topic.
Yep, we're back. Welcome to our channel. We're a reaction channel, obviously.
If you, dear listener, would like your song review, shout out to everybody at my gym. Shout out to all y'all. Thanks for keeping my Clark Kent Superman thing going. Appreciate y'all. Yeah, so the way that you get your song reviewed, dear listener, is actually pretty simple. My favorite is a community option. $1 at the gate gets you in that Patreon. And Patreon's really cool. You get in there, you join alliances, things like that. You pull your points together. That helps us determine what songs we do. If you're a filthy capitalist like Sori and you want to go Ronin, you don't want to be part of no freaking alliance. You want to do your
exactly
thing.
What you want, and you want to get it right in there.
Selfish bastard. $125 gets you straight to the head of the line. There's a tier on that on Patreon. There is also
PayPal is an option as well.
Kind of fast pass option with PayPal, but it's
links
merch
are in the description.
At gmail.com. Shout out to the dude that sent me an email. He's like, yeah, man, I'm not doing that PayPal shit. So we have Venmo and we have other things. Shout out to the homie. Yeah. Okay. And speaking of Patreon, because I'm a full-time YouTuber now, we're both full-time YouTubers now, I'm going to start participating. 95% of the interaction on Patreon is Sori. And then I cover the emails and you send it at gmail.com. But since I'm full-time now, I'm going to be jumping way more into that. And you guys know I'm starting to brainstorm and ideas and things like that. I just uploaded
there's so many fun things coming.
I just uploaded a video of your brother playing guitar. I'm going to reach out to Peter. We're going to figure out. Sori's got a special song for y'all. That's going up there. Also things like shirt designs and things like that.
There's a poll up there. That poll is actually public. So even if you're not a patron, you can still go in there and you can look at our recent posts and you can still participate in the poll. Yeah,
we're doing our best to figure out ways to, get great exclusive content on Patreon for patrons, as well as giving a few windows for other people to check out. So be on the lookout. We're going to be shooting a couple of Patreon update videos pretty soon because we're revamping the thing and what we're about to do.
You thought we were next level now?
I just nobody's doing what we're about to do.
Nope, it's going to be fun too.
So, and the patrons,
I'm on board.
The patrons have been around for years and they deserve to be rewarded. So that's coming. Okay, enough of that. This is Carrie by ISIS. This should be an interesting experience for sure.
Shout out to Julian.
Shout out to the homie. You ready?
Yep. Do it up.
Let's go. Let's go. Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa. Okay. So the first minute whatever had, it was kind of like
the sound that was going on.
Yeah, I think they were trying to set a table over kind of an atmosphere.
Uh-huh.
And so what I did was, it looked like, so it starts with an ellipses. So I was like, okay, maybe, so that's a continuation of something else. So I looked at the song before and after. So the song before is False Light, which is really interesting. First of all, the name of the record is Oceanic.
Uh-huh.
So the third, so this song that we're listening to now is Carrie. That's song 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, song 3 is called False Light, and this is how it ends. Drown in the first real breath takes hold, washed in a chill so peaceful, sink further. Hold his hand and crush it. The depth of the chasm is infinite. Discover bliss and serenity in drowning. Right? So the last line is discover bliss and serenity in drowning.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says, as the water takes hold.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's just, that song bleeds right into the next one, and then it goes into a instrumental after that.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like, and then the name of the record is Oceanic. So song 3, the person's drowning in a sea of bliss or whatever, and then song 4, it's again with the water theme or whatever. So it looks like this is the concept record, and they use the metaphor
of bliss. Where did you
in
get
regard
to
bliss? Well, if you look at the last song, line in song 3 under False Light,
it said bliss.
Well, it said serenity or something like that.
Discover bliss and serenity and drown.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of hear that about. I mean, I've never drowned or even come close to it, but I've heard it's very peaceful. What?
Drowning?
Yeah, I've heard that on multiple. Oh, I guess apparently, like when you're first, I don't know anything about it. This is just what I've heard. Apparently, when you're first, like, there's the panic, like before you take in a gulp of water. Yeah. But then as soon as you suck that water into your lungs and it's in there, apparently you get super peaceful. I've actually heard that multiple times from multiple sources. It comes from people that get then fished out and then brought back. They were I was completely...
Oh, like people that died? Got to the point where they went unconscious?
I'm not sure. I just know that once they took that breath... And, I mean, not that we believe everything we see in movies, but they do depict that in movies when someone's kind of drowning, that they kind of once they take it in, and there's kind of this calm. Yeah. So, I don't know. It actually, this song was a little sad because it reminded me...
I've seen a couple people drown. One of them was a controlled thing,
yeah,
this guy's gonna drink. He's
and
not one of them was peaceful.
Yeah, but they were thrashing around.
Even the guy.
And then once they took the breath in, they didn't get calm.
No.
No.
No. No.
Oh my God, that's so terrible.
Oh, I mean.
That's okay. Well, that's what I've heard, but ooh.
But I mean, you do hear things dudes have been shot, and they, the initial I've been hit or whatever, but when they're really bleeding out, they get an endorphin rush and whatever, and they're going, to them it's just like going to sleep or whatever. But I don't know about dry. I've never heard about that. That's to me one of the top 3 worst ways to die, in my opinion.
I mean,
yeah,
that's just what I heard.
I've never heard of that before.
And anyway, the song reminded me of, this is a super sad story, but there was this well, I'm not gonna too much detail, but okay, so somebody that I knew had brought me by this trailer, and the trailer was all falling in on itself, and it was just depressing looking. And they were when they were a kid, which was 20 years before then, there was a kid that was in their school, and I guess all the kids were hanging out on the ice, which is something that kids do, I guess, a lot in Maine. I mean, we tell our kids don't go on the ice. I warn them all the time, stay off the ice, stay off the ice. But I guess they were out on the ice, and he was telling them get off the ice, our parents don't want us on the ice, and of course the friends still kept going on the ice, and then one of the kids broke through the ice, And so he went to save that kid. He did save that kid, but he died. And he was like...
a kid himself? How old was he?
He was like 10. He was just a kid.
SubhanAllah.
And so the parents, obviously, they never, like, recovered from that. So they like, put the road further into the woods and built a new house back there. But they kept the trailer because that's where they used to live with him. And so it was just really sad just seeing, like, that trailer all caved in on itself and the windows were broken because time has passed, and just seeing, like, linens kind of blowing in the wind. It was just a very, very, very sad. And it's even more sad. Like, you want to be proud of your kid for, like...
Right.
But at the same time, you want to slap the shit out of those other parents that didn't tell their kid to stay off the ice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, well, I mean, your kid did a really good... To me, that's, like, Johan all the way. Like, Johan would go save that kid for sure. I feel like Dorian would pass him on a branch. You know what I mean? Like, Dorian would be like, what's the safest way to make this thing happen? And Johan would just be, he would just be right in there.
It's the panic people have with that's the thing that ends up killing the guy that you're trying to save you. It's the panic. The guys
right.
they're hitting, doing all types of shit. Yeah, man, that's my stepdad told me about a situation like that too. We're in Florida, we're in the pool or whatever, and I guess one of his buddies, I guess they used to walk to, well, it's interesting because me and my buddy Marcus used to walk. There was a public pool in New York, and it was such a long way, but we walked everywhere. Now, like, I would never walk. It was like literally like 10, 15-mile walk to and from, yeah. And me and Marcus, this one summer we decided it was cool because you get to get away from everybody or whatever, and yeah, man, my stepdad told me a situation where, like, it was in New York and they were and they used to go into the pool with their shoes on, and I guess there was some crack or something at the bottom. The kid's shoe got stuck, and it's like,
what?
Yeah, and he drowned under there. And I was like, why didn't you guys just take off his shoes? The kid didn't really know how to swim, and they were like...
They were in a pond?
No, they were in a pool. They were in a public pool.
This doesn't make any sense.
There's like
a crack?
200 people. There's
a crack in the bottom of the pool?
Something happened with something, and the kid's shoe got stuck under the water, and that was it.
Well, that is true. You don't think... So one time, my family was on this, like... We were on this trip together, and we stopped at this water, and the water was like... There had been this huge, giant downpour, and, like, we stopped at this water, and, like, we went out. My brother, oh my gosh, I was probably like 16, which would have made my brother like 12 or something like that. Maybe I was 15. Actually, I didn't have a boyfriend then, so I must have been like 14 or 15. So he was like 10 or something. Well, we're like jumping on down these rocks and stuff, and we ended up crossing this river. And it was kind of like one of those rivers that when you cross, you're like a little bit nervous, but you're pretty good. So we crossed, and then all of a sudden, like, that downpour that had happened 10 minutes or whatever before, I have no clue how long, all of a sudden that, whatever collected upriver, started coming down. And this river swelled so friggin' fast. And, like, what we should have done was just waited on the other side. But it was like, you just kept watching the river rising and rising and rising, and it was like, well, how high is this going to go? Like, we're going to get stuck on this side?
Yeah.
So we started to cross... And, like, I was trying to plant I was 15. I was, like, 110 pounds, like, literally. And so I'm, like, trying to plant my feet as much as I can into the river, like, into the rocks to kind of, like, get my brother across. Because for me, like, I remember thinking one of us could die or both of us could die. But I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going to let anything happen to my brother. And so... I was, like, grabbing him and, like, bringing him across. Like, my parents must have been so worried about what was going to happen. And then his foot got stuck. Like, the way that the water rushed, it sucked his foot right down in between two rocks. And you're right, I didn't even think to take his shoe off. Or maybe we did. Now, I can't remember. All I know is that his foot got stuck and the river was pushing him down. So then it was going to drown him, because once he got down, like, it wasn't, how are you going to get him back up? And so I... pushed myself behind him, and I was pushing his body up, and I knew that if I panicked, he was already panicked, and if I showed any sign of panic at all, that he was then going to panic, and it was going to be impossible to get him out. And so I was like, don't worry about it. I was like, just wiggle your foot really slowly. I was trying to sound calm, but it was very difficult to keep him up. I'm like, just wiggle your foot. And then I don't think we took his shoe off. I think he was able to kind of like weasel it out once I was like kind of holding him up. We did make it back across, but that was extremely scary. And then shortly after that, I think that's when the downpour then hit us. So we didn't know there was a downpour. That's right, because we wouldn't have. So it was downpour. It was downpouring so hard we had to pull the car over, and we didn't even know if people were going to smash us. You literally couldn't see this far in front of you. It was pouring so much. But I mean,
yeah, I'm reading this this comic, Sandman, and his sister is basically the Grim Reaper, and so like there's this one where, you know, these kids are playing outside and somebody hit a home run and the kid went to chase it and then he got hit by a car, and he's like, so he gets up and he's like geez, he's like, man, that was crazy. He's like, I was sure I was a goner. And then, you know, Death stands beside him and he knew her, like he was familiar with her, like they talked. Like they were talking, she's
That's
like, hey,
so freaking creepy.
She's like, hey, how you doing? Blah blah blah. He's like, yeah. I mean, I almost hit by a car. Blah 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 blah. And then she just stayed quiet. And he's like, well, thanks for talking to me. I want to go to my friends now. And then she just said she said the kid's name. I forget, she's Jake or something like that. And he goes, oh. And then in the background you hear Jake, and like he was dead. Like people were like,
oh my gosh.
And he didn't know who she was until like a minute later. He put everything together. He's like, damn. And it's like, so I'm looking at this song and I'm pretty sure there's stuff that we're missing because, you know, like I said, it's probably a concept record, especially when you look at how song 4 bleeds right out of song 3. It says, dust floats through sun in the water. He sees like he's never seen before. Mm-hmm. As you draw close, fall to me, I will carry you, true and free. Now that you're here, you'll swim with me, I'm clutching you true. So it's like, who's talking to him? See what I'm saying? And again, it might be a character from the, you know, like I said, I mean, the first song on the record is you know, the beginning and the end or whatever, the other. Mm-hmm. So probably a character was introduced in song 1 or song 2 that is now like in the world of the dead who's carrying him. But like, and we just recently had a death in our family now. Shout out to Larry Sr. And I was talking to him. He was in hospice, and his son allowed us to shoot a video for him. And so, you know, we were talking about, you know, death and things like that, and how we look at it as Christians or whatever. Yeah. And I compared it to, you know, and then for some reason, Race ended up in the room. Race is our youngest baby, and he. I told our daughter to bring him up. So I talked about how, look, when you're in utero, you know, it's 9 months. It's all you know. You hear faint voices. Some of them are familiar, especially with our kids, because we're literally around each other 24/7. So
also, we're very loud.
So you got 2 familiar voices that you hear, and that's comforting and fine. And then you've got your nice little amniotic water, and then you got your, you know, you're growing and you're swimming around. Everything's fine. Like, you know, like that's all you know, and you're happy. You know, it's like embryology is such a crazy discipline because, like, you know, they talk about like. Kid has favorite books, you know, they prefer this, they prefer Dr. Seuss to this, and yada yada yada. It's just
certain foods will make them
jump
around.
Yeah, they'll love certain foods, other foods they don't like. Like, it's perfect, it's fine. And then like one day like something is very, very different, and then the amniotic water that you were chilling in, all of a sudden that starts to go, and then you're hearing
I would assume they're gonna feel the contractions too, like their world might be like falling in on them.
I mean,
you know,
delivery is a violent. I mean, it's a violent experience.
And you're used to mom being like, oh, blah blah blah.
Right.
No, and she's in panic.
You're hearing yelling. I mean, think about it. Everything's basically quiet except for faint voices here and there. And then there's yelling, there's screaming, there's blood, there's all these bright lights. You have no idea what's going on. Yeah, I'm sure it's a terrifying experience, especially if, like, let's say they were twins and one went, like, let's say an hour before the second one went. Like, you could almost imagine, and they're like, oh my God, I lost my brother. He's gone someplace. Mm-hmm. And, like, he's never coming back here ever again. Mm-hmm. And, like, the kid would be right. And it would be the worst thing in the world to happen to him. And then if you were to say, now it's about to happen to you, you'd be like, oh no. And in reality, you're being birthed into, you were constricted. Mm-hmm. You were constricted the entire time. And yes, you heard your mother's voice, but you haven't really heard your mother's voice. And yes, you've heard your father's voice, but you haven't really heard your father's voice. And much less seeing your mother's face or your dad's face. Mm-hmm. So you're completely terrified, and then boom, you're exited out of the birth canal. And like, I don't know if you've seen a kid's head. Like, of course, Orion came out, he was completely symmetrical and perfect. But when Raisa and Johan, like, their heads are all squished because, like, like it's their skull isn't fused yet. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. And my point was, like, you go from being gestated and developing in this womb for 9 months, not realizing how constricted you were, and how positive that your life doesn't really truly start until you're born. In one sense. Notice I said in one sense. I'll have mercy on y'all. You know who I'm talking about. Whatever. But and so I was just saying to Larry Sr., I'm like, that's what death is like. It's we have no idea how constricted we are in this world. Right. And it's a terrifying idea that our friends who've gone on before us, they don't come back to this world. And, we're terrified of it. When in reality, it's opening, we're being born into a higher existence with more freedom. And you finally get to match the face to the voice of God, because we've all heard him our entire lives. And so that's what death is from our worldview, obviously. Right. And obviously the reason that death no longer has that sting as Christians is because Jesus died for our sins and rose again. But I always wonder about, like, those last few minutes, or the transitional period, and it's one of the weird kind of strange obsessions that I have, where I'll hang out late at night sometimes and I'll just Google, like, people's last words or whatever. And, like, it's just crazy. It's fascinating stuff, and some of it is hopeful, some of it is terrifying. But, like Steve Jobs saying, oh my God, this is so beautiful. That was the last words that he said. Or I think it was Roger, pretty sure it was Ebert, who told his wife, like, the day before he died, he said, this is all an elaborate hoax. He said, I went someplace. He's like, it's not heaven. He's like, I couldn't just, he's like, but it was just, he kept saying it was very broad. He just kept saying it was very broad. And that's where the pregnancy metaphor hit me. I was like, oh. Because you're so constricted here. And I think that's one of the ways that if a baby could come back from the outside world back into the world of the womb, he'd say, it's just so broad. There's so many things you can do, and you can run and jump. And I remember when Orion, like, first discovered, he did it again today. He jumped like a half inch off the floor, and then he looked at me. He's like, huh? I don't know if you know how to do that, Pops, but I mean, like,
I've never seen you do it.
Yeah, so, so when I read Ebert said that, I was like, holy shit, like, that's deep, bro. Like, that's what I would expect. Like, I think when you get to the next world, it's going to be like, holy shit, we were so constricted here, so, as you draw close, fall to me, I will carry you. The truth, obviously for me, that voice is the voice of God, and I've been talking, to God, Jesus, my entire conscious life. Yeah. And so, like, I just have the assumption that, when I go, like, he's gonna be there. I'm gonna be very familiar. I'm gonna,
and you'll see like you've never seen before.
Oh, I put a face to the voice.
Well, there's that verse that talks about we will know even as we are known, and it also says like for now we see in a
glass darkly,
dimly, but
then face to face.
Right. So that to me was like kind of like that part, and then it says, "As you draw close, fall to me. I will carry you true and free. Now that you're here, you will swim with me. I'm clutching you true." He is light in water.
Yeah, it says
that to me was like, obviously when you're talking about Jesus in the New Testament, like he is the light of the world. Well, we're the light of the world, but he ultimately is the greatest light.
He's the ultimate light, and because he's in us, we become.
So like when it said
proxy.
He is light in water, to me that was like, okay, in that death that takes place, like he's the light in the midst of the struggle. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it says he is light in water, but I'm pretty sure the song before was called False Light. Right? So the song before, song 3 is called False Light. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of song 4, the guy becomes light in water. Mm-hmm. So it's just, that's one of those things where it'd be really, really interesting to kind of go through this record song by song. And, there is going to be a Patreon tier for that, and alliance ways for alliances to come together and force the issue. But really, really good song. Really good song. I wasn't a fan of how long the intro was.
I agree.
I felt like that was 30 seconds too long.
Shoot, I don't know. I agree and I disagree at the same time.
Yeah.
Because
I was kind of split on it too.
And I liked it, but at the same time, I was kind of like, I peeked a couple times. When these lyrics going to start? Because I'm kind of curious. How this is going to sound.
Yeah. And then I kind of said, well, let me see here, and so being able to look at the song before kind of helped me in my interpretation of the lyrics. Yeah, I just felt like 30 seconds would have done it. It didn't have to. It was like 1 minute and 12 seconds it went on, but I mean. Other than that, I thought the song was on point and pretty, pretty cool. And a lot of these bands really surprised me. I was thought there was going to be some like driving like death metal.
Oh yeah, I know. I was very surprised.
I thought I was ready for some, but it did, which is great. It's great. God. Take it off God. What do you get song?
Shoot, that's a tough one. 9.6.
8.8 for me. Moral of the story, ladies and gentlemen, is
don't walk on ice.
Don't walk on ice. And if your shoes get stuck or whatever, take them off. I'll buy you another pair of shoes, or I'll send them to you. We've got
what's
literally hundreds of them.
There was this video of like this girl, and she was kicking her feet up, and when she did, she wedged her one foot up on the ceiling and her other foot was on the ground. It looked super uncomfortable. And the minute Zoe saw it, I said, look at this lady, because she got stuck like that. And then she was like, you could tell there was like this panic. Zoe's like, why doesn't she just take her shoe off? It was one of those situations. Yeah. I don't think she thought of it. She was just like, oh my gosh, I'm wedged here.
Easy for you to say when you're not the one
you're not the one in the panic.
In the irreversibly doomed situation.
Bend your knee, lady.
There you
Slide
are.
your foot out of that heel.
There you are, dear listener. Vin out.
Story out.
Gone.